want to kick off this deep dive with a question that is, it's simultaneously the most common and probably the most dishonest question in the English language.
Okay, that is quite the buildup. I'm intrigued. What is it?
It's just 3 words. You hear them every single day. You answer them every single day. And I would bet money that you almost certainly lie when you do.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah.
How is your day?
Yes. The classic social trap.
It really is.
Because think about it. When someone asks you that, maybe it's your partner walking in or, a coworker in the elevator, what do you actually say?
Usually, just fine or busy.
Right.
Maybe tired if I'm feeling particularly chatty that day.
Exactly. We default to these flat beige descriptors.
Yeah.
But the reality of a day, even just a totally boring Tuesday where nothing big happens, is this really complex, jagged thing.
Oh, for sure.
It has peaks, valleys, sensory overload, moments of total silence. But we rarely have the actual language to describe that texture.
Well, and we don't really have the energy either, frankly. I mean, to explain the actual nuance of a Tuesday takes way more effort than just saying it was fine.
And that is exactly what we are digging into today. We're looking at a source material that is deceptively simple on the surface. It's an English learning resource called Speak English with Class.
Right.
And specifically, we're looking at a module designed to move learners past the B1 level basics of, like, I woke up at 7 a.m. and into what they call real talk, the emotional vocabulary of daily life.
And I want to clarify our mission here right away. We aren't doing a grammar lesson today.
No, definitely not.
What fascinated me about this source is that while the surface goal is vocabulary, the actual content is a masterclass in the psychology of routine.
Yeah.
It really deconstructs the emotional arc of a modern day in a way that I think even native speakers completely miss.
It treats the day not as a schedule of tasks to cross off, but as a series of emotional battles and sanctuaries.
Yeah, precisely. It identifies the friction points, so waking up, the transition home, and gives us specific anchors to handle them. And it gives us the specific words to name what we are feeling. Because there is a massive psychological difference between feeling tired and feeling drained.
That distinction is huge. And we are going to get into that specific vocabulary toolkit later because it really is a game changer. But first, I want to walk through this chronological arc that the source lays out.
Let's do it.
Because it starts with a conflict that I think every single person listening has fought. The morning battle.
Yes, the war against the alarm clock.
The source describes this very specific negotiation, and I love this. It anthropomorphizes the bed covers.
It does.
It describes this dialogue where the human says, I must go make coffee, and the blanket simply says, no, stay.
It's funny because it's true, but let's look at what the source is actually highlighting there. It's talking about inertia. It's that physical weight of transition. The source asks this philosophical question from the perspective of the blanket, which is, are you sure that is real life out there?
Which is a remarkably compelling argument at 6:30 in the morning.
Highly compelling. It highlights the friction between the safety of sleep and the demands of the waking world. It's not just laziness, it's a transition shock. And this leads to the first trap the source identifies, which is the snooze button lie.
Oh, the lie, the classic, just 5 more minutes.
Yeah, the source breaks down the math of those 5 more minutes. It argues that they are never actually restorative. You aren't getting deep sleep. You're just blurring the line between sleep and wakefulness and creating this fog that basically follows you into the shower.
And that fog leads to a concept the source introduces called mental laundry, which honestly was probably my favorite metaphor in the entire text. It's so visual.
It is incredibly accurate.
Describe what mental laundry looks like in the context of a morning.
So imagine your bedroom floor is covered in piles of dirty clothes. Socks, shirts, towels, just scattered everywhere.
Okay.
Now imagine those are your thoughts. You haven't even physically left the bed yet, but your brain is already picking through this pile.
Yeah.
I need to email that person. Did I pay the gas bill? I'm running late. What's for dinner? It's just unorganized clutter.
It's the paralysis of the undefined.
Yeah.
Like you aren't actually doing the tasks. You're just looking at the pile and feeling the weight of it.
Exactly. And the source argues that this mental laundry state is why we feel exhausted before we even brush our teeth. It's cognitive load without cognitive action. You are burning fuel just staring at the mess.
So how do we fix it? Because the source offers a strategy here that is surprisingly non-aspirational. It doesn't say, go run a 5K or meditate for an hour.
No, and thank goodness for that. It offers the good morning disaster strategy.
I love the branding on that. It sounds like an indie rock band.
It's brutal honesty. The strategy is literally this. You put your feet on the floor, you take one deep breath, and you verbally admit, "Good morning, disaster. Let's try again."
Why does saying that help, though? I mean, to some people that might sound defeatist.
It's actually the exact opposite. It's radical acceptance.
Uh,
If you wake up late and your mind is full of laundry, and you try to pretend you're some productivity influencer having a blessed morning,
right.
you create a huge gap between reality and expectation. And that gap is stress. By saying, "Good morning, disaster," you close the gap.
You acknowledge the chaos.
Yes. You stop fighting the fact that things are messy, which frees up the actual energy you need to just move 5 inches forward.
You lower the stakes.
Yeah.
You aren't trying to win the morning anymore. You're just trying to survive it.
Correct. You are giving yourself permission to start imperfectly.
But then we have to navigate the minefield. The source calls the next phase the morning scroll trap.
The modern affliction. The smartphone.
Yeah. The source describes the instinct to grab the phone while you're still horizontal in bed. And it points out something profound. Physically, nothing has changed. You are still warm, you are still safe. But emotionally,
Emotionally, you have just downloaded the entire world's anxiety directly into your brain. The source notes that your body is in a place of rest, but your mind is suddenly in a place of comparison and crisis.
it uses the word restless here. It says you go from sleepy to restless in 60 seconds.
And restless is a key vocabulary word we'll touch on more later. It's that vibration of "I should be doing something else" or "I am not enough." You're comparing your internal mental laundry to everyone else's curated internet gallery.
So the source suggests a counter move to this. It calls them anchors. And these aren't metaphorical concepts. They are physical actions to stop the drift. The first one involves the sky.
Opening the curtains. It sounds banal, but the source insists on using the sky as a visual anchor. It says the light doesn't fix your problems, the bill is still unpaid, the email is still unwritten, but the light makes the problems less scary.
It creates scale, doesn't it? The sky is big, the email is small.
Right, it's a biological reset. It tells your circadian rhythm, "We are here, it is today." And the second anchor is the coffee ritual. And the source is very specific here. It's not about the caffeine addiction. It's about the relationship with the mug.
A serious relationship, I believe they called it.
It is. It's about sensation, the heat, the smell, the weight. The source advises drinking it slowly with no phone, even if it's just for 3 minutes. It acts as a battery recharge before the output begins. If you
Yeah.
drink it while scrolling, you aren't recharging, you're leaking energy.
So we've survived the morning. We've acknowledged the disaster. We've anchored ourselves with the sky and the coffee. The source material kind of fast forwards through the workday itself, which I think is fair because work is often just a blur of output and other people's demands.
Definitely.
And it lands us at the next critical pivot point, the homecoming.
The threshold moment.
This is where the narrative shifts from surviving to recovering. The source talks about the specific sensation of closing the front door and your body whispering, "We made it."
But here is the catch, and this is where the psychology comes in again. The source argues that just being inside the house isn't enough. You have to signal to your nervous system that the performance is over.
What do you mean by performance?
Well, we spend all day performing. Being the good employee, the good commuter, the polite person in line for lunch, we need a physical trigger to turn that off.
And it suggests we do that with home clothes.
The calm button, sweatpants, oversized t-shirts, the old hoodie. It's not just about physical comfort, it's literally a costume change. You are taking off the costume of the worker and putting on the uniform of the self.
And taking off the shoes. They call this barefoot peace.
Barefoot peace. I love that phrasing. Think about what shoes represent. Action, running, driving, leaving. When the shoes are off, you are grounded, metaphorically and literally. The source says this signals to the brain we are not going anywhere, we are safe.
There's also a bit of atmosphere engineering mentioned here, specifically regarding the big light.
Oh, the enemy of relaxation, the big, bright overhead light.
I feel so seen by this part. The source explicitly says, turn off the overhead lights. Why is that such a big deal? Why does the source focus on lighting?
Because bright overhead light mimics the sun at noon. It screams, awake, alert, danger, focus to your primitive brain. If you are trying to unwind under a fluorescent glare, your biology is fighting you. The source suggests warm lamps, candles, soft light. It says changing the light makes the problem stop yelling.
Turning down the volume. That seems to be the theme of the evening routine. We aren't fixing the day's stress, we're just turning down the volume so we can hear ourselves think. There's another technique mentioned, the visualization in the shower.
The water reset. It's a really simple mindfulness trick. You visualize the stress as physical dirt. As the warm water hits you, you imagine the anxiety and the weird conversations and the deadlines washing off your skin and swirling down the drain.
It sounds a little new agey.
It does sound a bit woo-woo, but associating a physical sensation like water with an emotional release is actually a very established psychological tool.
Okay, so you've decompressed, the shoes are off, the lighting is moody, you've washed the day away. But now we have a variable we haven't discussed. Other people.
The roommates, or as the source calls them, people who share your walls or your Wi-Fi.
Which is the most modern definition of family I've ever heard. Shared Wi-Fi.
It's accurate. But this leads to the dinner table dynamics. And I really appreciated that the source didn't paint this picture of a perfect, harmonious 1950s sitcom dinner where everyone politely asks about their day.
No, it calls it noisy. And it frames that noise as a positive thing. It describes dinner as a mix of complaining, joking, and eating. The source uses this image of everyone having been on separate roads all day, and dinner is where the roads merge back to one table.
It's about reconnection, but not necessarily deep, profound, soul-gazing connection.
Right, it doesn't have to be a family therapy session.
Exactly. It's the connection of proximity. The source suggests that sharing the complaints of the day is actually a bonding ritual. It validates that we are in this together. Even if everyone is grumbling about their boss or their homework, you're grumbling in the same space. That counts.
So what about the listeners who don't have that noisy table? The source addresses people living alone or far from family with the concept of remote anchors.
I found this really touching. The source emphasizes the short call, and they heavily stress the word short. 2 minutes.
That feels very doable. I think people avoid calling their parents or friends because they think it has to be a whole hour-long catch-up and they just don't have the energy.
Right, the mental laundry gets in the way. I don't have time for a big talk. But the source says the function of the call isn't to exchange massive amounts of information, it's just to hear a familiar voice. That voice acts as an anchor. It reminds you that you belong somewhere, even if you feel totally invisible in your current apartment or city.
Belonging somewhere. That's a powerful antidote to isolation.
It creates object permanence for your relationships. You exist in someone else's story, and they exist in yours.
So we've done the morning battle, the homecoming, the connection, but the day isn't over. There's one final zone the source explores, and I think it might be the most important one for our mental health, the do not disturb zone. Solitude.
This is the time for the self. Not the employee self, not the partner self, just the being.
The source describes a physical setup for this. A comfort zone. A chair by the window, a blanket, a lamp, a plant. It sounds like a generic cozy Pinterest board, but you think there's more to it.
It's about the function of the space. The source says this is a place where breathing slows down. And crucially, it implies this is a place where you do not have to grow. You do not have to improve. You do not have to learn a language or optimize your side hustle.
That's such a relief. We are so obsessed with optimization right now. We feel guilty if we aren't listening to an educational audiobook while we brush our teeth.
We do, but the source frames the comfort zone not as a place of stagnation, but as a place of recovery. You can't be on 24 hours a day.
To help clear the mind in this zone, the source suggests music. But specifically, music to fill the mind so thoughts stop shouting. And then something called microjournaling.
This is another low-stakes strategy. It's not writing a memoir. It's not writing 3 pages of prose. It's writing 1 or 2 lines to clean up the mental clutter before sleep.
Kind of like closing the tabs on your browser.
Perfect analogy. You acknowledge the day, you label it, and you file it away. The source suggests prompts like, today was tired but proud, or today was hard but I didn't give up. It provides closure so you don't carry the open loops into your sleep.
You mentioned labeling there. I want to pivot to the toolkit the source provides. This is explicitly an English learning resource, remember, so they have a section called Crystal's Vocabulary Breakdown. But as we discussed at the top, this isn't just a vocab list, it's an emotional inventory.
Psychologists call this emotional granularity.
Explain that concept for us.
It's the ability to specifically name what you are feeling with precision. Most people have very low granularity. They just say, I feel bad, or I feel stressed. The problem is, you can't fix bad. It's too vague. But if you can say, I feel restless, you know the solution is movement. If you can say, I feel lonely, you know the solution is a call. Naming the monster shrinks the monster.
Let's run through the negative spectrum words the source highlights. We've touched on some, but I wanted to find them clearly so you can use them. The first is overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed is the feeling of too much. It's a quantity issue. Too much input, too many tasks. It's the peak state of mental laundry. When you are overwhelmed, you don't need motivation, you need subtraction. You need to do less.
And then there's drained. How is that different from just being tired?
Tired is, I need sleep. It's physical. You ran a mile. You are tired. Drained is, I have given everything away. It's spiritual and emotional depletion. You can sleep for 10 hours and still wake up drained. The cure for drained isn't just sleep. It's doing something that feeds you, like art or nature or silence. It's an input issue, not just a rest issue.
That distinction is vital. Next is restless. We talked about this with the scrolling.
Right. Restless is agitation. It's high energy, but negative energy. It's the inability to settle. It's a disconnect between a body that wants to move and a brain that is stuck. If you're restless, lying on the couch usually makes it worse. You need to burn off the static.
Grumpy. I feel like this is a very underrated adult emotion.
Yeah.
We usually pretend we're too mature to be grumpy. We use bigger words like frustrated.
But we aren't too mature. We are just tall toddlers sometimes. Grumpy is irritable. It's having a short fuse. And the source validates this. It says usually grumpiness is biological. You're hungry, you're hot, you're tired. It's not a character flaw. It's just a signal that your basic needs aren't met.
And last negative one is cluttered.
The messy room inside the head, when you can't find the thought you need because there's just too much debris floating around.
Okay, let's look at the antidotes, the positive spectrum. We have anchor.
Anything that holds you steady when the world is spinning. The sky, the coffee, the routine. An anchor doesn't stop the storm, but it stops you from drifting out to sea.
Intentional.
This is the opposite of autopilot. It's doing things on purpose. Not just doom scrolling, but deciding, I'm going to sit in this chair and read for 10 minutes. It turns a habit into a ritual. Intentionality turns drinking coffee into actually caring for yourself.
Recharge.
Getting the energy back. And importantly, the source implies that recharging looks different for everyone. For introverts, it's silence. For extroverts, it might be that noisy dinner table. You have to know what fills your specific battery.
Cozy.
It seems like a fluffy word, but it's crucial. Cozy means safe, warm light, soft textures. It's a safety signal to the primal brain that says, there are no predators here. You can't truly relax if you don't feel cozy.
And finally, the comfort zone.
The source entirely reclaims this term. In the self-help world, we are always told to get out of your comfort zone. Growth happens outside the comfort zone.
It's practically a command, live on the edge.
But the source says, yes, growth happens outside, but rest happens inside. You need a safe place where you don't fear judgment, a place where you can just exist. If you are always out of your comfort zone, you aren't growing, you're panicking, you need the zone to return to.
That is such an important distinction. You don't have to be optimizing your existence at 9:30 p.m. on a Thursday.
No, you really don't. You can just be.
So putting this all together, the morning battle with the blanket, the anchors against the scroll trap, the homecoming rituals, and this whole vocabulary of granularity. What is the big takeaway here? What is the ultimate mission of this deep dive?
I think the mission is to realize that a normal day isn't a flat line. It isn't just time passing. It's a story. And you are the narrator. If you just drift through it, you are the victim of the day. The alarm happens to you, the traffic happens to you, the stress happens to you.
But if you use these tools...
If you use the tools, you gain agency. You say, I am feeling restless, so I will find an anchor. I am feeling drained, so I will seek the comfort zone. You stop fighting the reality of the day and start navigating it. You accept the good morning disaster, and you move forward anyway.
And the source also reminds us that our worth isn't a homework score.
That's the final grace note. You don't have to earn your rest by having a perfect, productive day. You don't have to earn the blanket. You deserve the blanket just because you exist.
I think that's something we all need to hear. So we want to leave you with a little mental anchor of your own, based on that micro-journaling concept we talked about.
Right. Tonight, before you go to sleep, try to clean up your mind. Don't write a to-do list for tomorrow. That's just more laundry.
Instead, try to summarize today in one sentence. Something honest, like, today was messy, but I made people laugh. Or, today I was invisible, but I saw the sky.
If you had to close the book on today with one sentence, what would it be?
Think about that. And maybe, just maybe, tomorrow morning, be a little nicer to the blanket. Thanks for listening to this deep dive.
Take care of yourselves.